If you're just tuning in, we're talking with Ajax out of San Francisco, a major influencer in the early development of what is arguably the golden era of DJing, straight out of San Francisco, where all of the dons came from. This dude was a major contributor to that scene. He had the record store. He was well networked. He threw events. This is the man, and I wanted to let everyone know. And also, he's brilliant. He's the local repair guy for all the turntables. And last time I ran into you was at NAMM 2018, and you were doing DJ instructional classes and stuff like that at NAMM.
Yeah. We were teaching. It was through Pioneer, through actually Andrew B's store down there, and he was doing like intro to mixing classes.
We've decided that we are probably going to need an entire episode dedicated to talking about turntable repair 101, particularly the main stuff, RCAs, maybe a tone arm assembly replacement, things like that. Maybe calibrating the pitch, which is really important too. And cleaning. I mean, most of it is just cleaning. You would be surprised how dirty they get and how just wiping them down makes them run so much better.
I mean, just looking at some of like the pictures that I posted on Instagram, especially lately, like I've really started to do more of the, I guess if you want to call it detailing. And, in the last year, I guess I really started to pay attention more to the cosmetics and like the deeper cosmetics instead of just wiping them down with a little bit of like rubbing alcohol or whatever, but actually using, people don't know, but I've got a background in like auto body work. And so I started to think, okay, why don't I use some products? So I started to find like some better, like metal polishes and just different products like that. So I would always only use like a mild, like, spray cleaner and rubbing alcohol, but now I'm using stuff like the shit that you would use on your rims, basically.
Oh, tight.
It really just makes the tone arms like sparkle. The tone arms, like the start stop, the 45, I'm drawing a blank, but the pop-up light.
Yeah, total target light.
Like some of these pictures, it's like, holy crap, you don't realize like how messed up someone's turntable is until you see those pictures like side by side. You're like, wow, that thing was like super dull, and now it's like sparkly like new.
It's got that sheen, right? And a lot of it is just from years and years of letting it sit out in the open air.
Yeah, some of it, you don't even think of it as like corrosion, but it happens, right? I mean, if you're looking at the average 1200, they're all like 25 years old now. And so it's going to get dull. But because it happens, like on a daily basis, it's just like that much, like every day over the last 25 years, it builds up. And then you take this like little polishing cloth to it and you buff this whole thing out. And you see the amount of like black crap that comes off on this cloth that you're polishing with. It's like, holy shit, man, all of that was on my turntable.
We already got the chat. The chat is alive. We could have made this
where can I see that on? Over here, or is that on?
You can just jump on Twitch, twitch.tv/916junglist. Mute your Twitch so that it doesn't double up.
I follow you already, so.
Appreciate that. Hold on. Let me catch up with the chat. Epic chiming in. What up, dude? We got a lot of folks saying a few words, so let me get through this real quick. Beef Grit says, some piece of cut off my ground cables once. Still pissed about that a decade and a half later. I believe you. Entity says, I have a totally jacked tone arm. I wonder if the bearing is screwed and if it would have to be replaced. That's something that AJ could chime in on. I usually, because I'm not skilled enough in the actual complexities of the tone arm, I usually replace entire tone arm assemblies or get rebuilt tone arm assemblies and then use those install them entirely. No Use for Anger says, I do have a weird question about Technics. After 2 hours, one of my Technics M3Ds, the sound gets distorted. And this is somebody who plays vinyl, by the way, just so you know, AJ. And it only does it after 2 hours straight and only on one turntable. That sounds like it could be heat related.
Yeah, that's a weird one. I want to, okay, I've seen some people talk about an issue like that where after a while it starts to get messed up. And I want to say it's the, and I haven't done any replacements of this. I recently like bought the part so I can, but I think it's the the D301 diode on the inside board.
There you go.
That's accessible without like popping the bottom off and everything. You just have to pop off the platter, but you do have to get under the main board for it, and it's definitely not a beginner thing. Like, you don't want to be doing that.
My man, no use for anger. My man, we got some
YouTube and, no, don't do it.
Right. We got some straight surgeons in the room. The level of intelligence in our chat is above average for the DJ lifestyle, for the DJ fare, I would say. We got some scientists in the room, and I love that about our chat. No Use for Anger is very well versed in electronics. My man repairs pinball machines, and he does like all kinds of crazy shit. So you talk about a specific diode that needs to be replaced, he's on it. And he's like, okay, which one is it again?
the D301, I think. Entity
earlier said he has a jack tone arm. He was wondering about the bearing. Do you think that's a good idea? Is maybe looking into a reassembled tone arm assembly, like a refurbished tone arm assembly? Or
yeah, I mean, well, you know what? Now, I mean, obviously, back in like the 90s, tone arms were super easy to get. Like, I had an account with Technics when they were actually in South San Francisco.
Yep.
So it was like, 2 exits away from the record store I used to own. Okay, you need a new part, run over to Technics and buy a tone arm. Now it's like, there's $300 for a standard silver tone arm on eBay, brand new. So luckily, over the years, I had always saved every tone arm that I replaced. So I do have a lot of like those base assemblies and everything. So, now it's like, okay, someone's got a jacked up, needle head part. Okay, I can replace that with another one who had a cracked arm. So,
that's gold. Yeah, straight up. That's super gold to have all those service parts, because those service parts are hard to find right now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're a valuable resource. Anybody who's looking for service parts for a turntable, hit up my man. Probably can hook you up, or at least help you out and point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Yep.
I'm always down to like answer questions. Should I say my Instagram or?
Yeah. This is what it's all about. We're all about networking. We're all about promoting. As long as you're not an asshat in the chat and just blatantly spamming your shit, I'm all for people promoting their shit.
Yeah, I mean, I can say it now too. So, my main Instagram is DJ Ajax SF, and then I have one dedicated specifically to like turntable repairs. It's Fresh 1200s with an S.
If any of you landed here from watching one of the recap videos, I will put all of this information in the YouTube description on the recap video, so you'll be able to find all of his information. Let me catch back up with the chat real quick. Did you know you can internally ground your turntable to itself? Yeah, so okay. Man, we're going to get into this. This is going to be a turntable episode if we get into this, because you and I may or may not have different opinions on internally grounding turntables. I personally am not for it. I do understand that the ground is not a ground for the power supply. The power supply has got its own grounding situation. The ground is to regulate the tone arm. And when you regulate the tone arm to something that is still inside of the device, like if you just ground it to like where you're grounding it, you're going to introduce a little bit of noise into the signal, little bit. And that noise, to me, I've heard side by side. Now, maybe it was the job that was done. Maybe there can be a better job done. But I've heard side by side when playing a regular record, when playing a regular phonograph record, that the turntable that was internally grounded was a little bit noisy. Whereas if you used the traditional grounding it to the mixer source instead, there was less noise in the signal for a phonograph record. Now, when we're talking about DVS control records, all that shit is out the window, because that little bit of noise makes zero fucking difference. But if you're like an audiophile that is like particular about your sound, and you bought this expensive ass turntable, there are a lot of people that would argue, in my opinion, that you're devaluing your turntable by internally grounding it. What do you think about that?
Now, well, I started doing the internal ground thing probably back in the 90s, and then I stopped. Because I realized like a lot of the, like some of the mixers, like the early Geminis and the early Newmarks, maybe like the cheaper models, they probably didn't have like the ground like carrying through both sides. And the way most people do the grounding is by just jumping one of the wires.
Right.
So they'll jump the ground wire, run it to the negative of the left RCA because it goes up and around the thing on the PC board.
Exactly what they do.
So if the mixer doesn't like carry the ground through that specific side, it's going to be like it's not grounded. So I couldn't even figure it out because back then, like, I didn't really know that much. I was just like, okay, I'm just going to change everybody's RCAs and everything and just do what I'm told to do, right?
Sure.
And because I had a few come back with like noise issues, I was just like, you know what, forget it. I'm not going to do this anymore. What I'm going to do is just replace the cables and replace the ground wire with like an 18 gauge cable with a new spade.
Better ground wire, right?
A better ground,
right?
And then you know, over the last like maybe 6 to 8 years, I started to do it again, but I'm doing it better by actually using a brand new PC board with the grounds built into the trace of the board.
Okay.
So it's not just jumping the wire, but it's actually running to both sides. And with that, I have not really had any issues unless like somebody has dirty power at their house, which in case, you know, they can like use a power conditioner, like a good Furman or something.
This is like an aftermarket PCB that you're installing.
Yeah, I actually sell those. And
is this the one that creates a female RCA jack on the turntable, or does this still have a direct wire coming out?
No, this one has a wire coming out.
Okay.
But you can use like, I mean, I have those jack plates too, where I would install the board on the inside to take care of the grounding, and then connect the plate adapter to make it a female. Now the female thing, like that, I don't really like doing. That one I've had different issues because like everyone always wants to be like, oh man, I'm gonna use the best quality cable, and they start using like car audio cables with all these like crazy fucking shieldings and everything, and you would think in theory that would work better. You know, it's like, oh, okay, it's designed to like prevent noise from radiating in due to your like, you know, your alternator noise from your car and all that. But I've had nothing but bad luck, even just changing RCAs using like the thick ass like monster cables and other like car audio brands.
Yeah, it's not gonna make a difference. Yeah. We're doing this a little bit back. Let me catch up with the chat real quick here. I prefer having ground ultimately. Go the third outlet prong at the end of the day. As the Beef Grit says, he likes to run it to the third prong. That would introduce noise, in my opinion. Beef Grits. Let's see. No Use Finger agrees on having proper power. Furman power conditioners obviously are great. We're dealing with analog and we're dealing with raw power and analog, so there's going to be noise in the signal to some degree. And so having clean power is definitely the great start in having. And this is all like, this is great for the headline, because in the headline it was boomer stories, and that goes back to like beyond, not really beyond DJing because it's a part of DJing, but it goes into like the audiophile section of things. You know what I mean? It goes into like those that are spending a lot of money on their turntables.
But it is worth noting, when I did the turntables for Ruby Sky, they specifically asked not to do the internal grounding. So
I believe it.
I feel like the higher end venues, they're just like, don't do it.
Right.
You know, just put the good quality cables on that I use, and use a better ground cable. You know,
so
of course I use audio, you know, car audio grade, like 18 gauge wire.
So we're doing this a little bit backwards. Everybody, this is Ajax out of San Francisco, originally Daly City. This guy is like from ground central of like where DJ culture exploded in the mid-late 90s, and he's one of the people that were on the front lines of it all.